Are you running ads, but you're not getting the results or the growth that you know you should be getting? You hired that incredible ad agency that your friend referred to you, or maybe you hired the kid down the street that's going to school for marketing and he's charging you $750 a month, or you're DIY, doing it all yourself. You've paid for courses, you're in coaching groups, all the masterminds, and it's still not working. Well, don't worry. In this episode, I'm breaking down three key components in which you can identify where it is that you're having an issue and how to fix it so that you can start getting results, the results you should be getting with your ads, and take your business to the moon. Let's get into it. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Renee here with Neon Tiger Media, helping businesses and entrepreneurs navigate the cold digital world. Don't get lost in the sauce, my friends. So a little bit about me. I've been running paid advertising for over 14 plus years. I spent over 300 million in meta ads alone. That's inclusive of Facebook and IG. And we run ads from connected TV, programmatic, digital audio, good old Google PPC days. And I've been doing the branding thing since like 2008. So beyond the 14 plus years. I share all of that to tell you that what you're about to learn today is not just fluff. It's not just something I pulled through chat GPT. And it's not just because with the few little clients that we run. No, we work with some of the biggest, largest Fortune 500 companies, actively spending millions of dollars in ad spend every month, touching different accounts on different verticals. So it's my true passion to make sure that we're providing you with value that's that you can apply. I almost said applicable, but it wasn't rolling off the tongue, but giving you something that's going to provide you value so that you can fix what it is that you need to fix so you can start getting the leads, the sales that you should be getting for what you're investing in your hard work, letting your business shine for the true, incredible brand that it is. So everything that I'm touching on today is mainly through the lens of meta ads. However, this is going to work for majority of ad platforms that you're using out there. So if you're running social across Snapchat, TikTok, LinkedIn, even if you're running Google ads, there's going to be components here that are going to apply. So don't run away. You want to stay. And before we dive in, hey, if you're new here and you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Would love for you to connect with our videos, consume the content, and be on the lookout for weekly videos as we're always posting, trying to provide that value so that you guys can grow and take your business to the moon. In the description down below, there's also resources. We do monthly master classes. I started doing a live event, which is at the moment 2 days. It could change by the time you see this, but it's going to be linked below. And it's where we go hands-on live with the group to build your campaign, build your whole system so that you can start getting the results that we get for businesses that grow to 7-figure months to 8-figure years. You don't want to miss that stuff. Click it down below. So before we dive in, the one thing that we always need to clarify is people have different perceptions, different language that they use when they talk about ads, right? A lot of people, when they think ads, some people literally physically mean like the creative unit itself. Some people think about the campaign, the structure. Some people are thinking about their funnel. There's a lot of different components that come into play. And I do want to make sure that we cover that what we're about to cover here is your full system. Because here's the thing, at the end of the day, you could have the greatest creative in the world, right? But if you don't have a system, if you don't have a full strategy that's there to grow your business effectively, to achieve that business outcome that you want, there's not the, you could go spend 200,000 on a piece of video creative. It will not do anything for you. Okay. So the system is super important. So what we're going to cover here is calling out a lot of those different components, not only just the creative itself, but also the overall funnel and what it is where you could find that is broken that you can address. And you'd be surprised. A lot of times a simple tweak. We've had businesses literally, honestly, most of the business that come to us that are like at their wits end, it's literally just one minor change we make. And they go from literally like, we're about to close shop to, oh my gosh, we're freaking scaling and we're growing. Let's turn this up. So that's what we want to deliver today and believe in that. And if you have questions, comment down below, reach out to us on social media, me at Renee G. Marquez. I'm always here available. Send emails, never a bother. We're here to add value, add resources. We want to help people. We want to make sure that you're not being stuck in your journey. There's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of nonsense. Everybody's an expert. And so we just want to make sure that we're coming truthfully here, adding value so that you can make that change so your business doesn't remain stuck and die off. And there's three key components here that we want to make sure that we cover on. Now, I know not all businesses are the same. Verticals are different. There's a lot of things that can get complicated. There's a lot of hacks, tricks. So we're keeping it super overview to get you just to think in the correct manner. So regardless of how your setup is or where you're at, it's super important that this is just going to get you thinking in the right direction. So number one, we're talking about setup. The first thing is, what is your objective, right? And this can even apply for you to consider, am I on the right platform? But your objective is basically in Meta, what are you selecting for the outcome that you want, right? If you're an e-com store and you're running an engagement objective or video views or an awareness play that's just reaching impressions and you're not optimizing towards purchase, which is the goal that you actually want, then guess what? There's your big disconnect. That's your number one thing where it's broken because it's not, you don't have the hose connected in the right place. You went and bought all the equipment, you set everything up, but you have it in the wrong pipeline and the system is blind shooting in the dark. So, super important that you have the correct objective. If you're trying to get leads, you need to optimize to generating leads. So if you're driving them to a landing page that has a form, make sure your pixel is set up and it's tracking and you're optimizing to, hey, this is winning, not just driving traffic and then you're wondering why you're not getting leads. Meta system is very literal and you need to understand that when you tell it to do something, that's solely what it will do. Now, there's times where people get success from running things like a traffic campaign or engagement. Shoot, there's people that do the terrible thing of boosting what you shouldn't do, and they get results from it. And a lot of that's going to do with brand and authority and just being lucky in that there's a demand out there, but you have no control. There's no consistency. And at one moment, can become volatile. And what we're talking here is about building a system with your ads that you can get consistent sales and leads. So your objective is going to be super important. Make sure that you're selecting to that outcome closest to that furthest action. So we have clients that have booking systems that don't have tracking capabilities. So guess what? We optimize towards the event that's closest to before that action. And then we're also feeding offline data back, other different ninja stuff that we do to make sure that we're measuring. But at the end of the day, get closest to that action, the desired outcome that you want, and not that you're 6 steps back, right? And so if you are an add to cart, a lot of times that it does work well because it brings you volume, but at some point you need to get it to purchase. And we've had businesses that are running the add to cart, and that's all Meta does, and nobody buys. And they said the moment they switch over to purchase, the purchases start happening. And the system doesn't make people take the action. I want to be clear, but it's important that you're feeding the system the correct data because it's very literal. And so if it's people that are taking that action and it's like it's winning, it's going to continue to drive that. You could set up a lead campaign to leads, but if you're not tracking feeding data back, the campaign's going to stall. It's going to be shooting in the dark and it's not going to get you the qualified traffic or individual that you should be getting. And now, as we continue to dive in within your campaign setup, we talked about objective. The second key component is your budget. It's super important if you understand if your budget is actually enough for what you're trying to achieve. So one of the key components here is that it takes 50 events to exit learning phase. And I think it's changed. We're seeing instances where it's switching to 15. And forgive me if I'm wrong. I'll put it accurately because I'll follow up. But majority of the times we're still seeing the 50 component where it's like 50 purchases exits you out of learning phase, right? Which is just the best practices that you do want to exit that. So when you're doing that equation there, you would basically use an equation of like, what's your target acquisition cost per purchase? And then you're going to multiply that by 50 and then divide it by 7. And that's going to give you your daily budget. Right now, here's the thing. We're not all fortunate enough to have high volume of resources. We're starting somewhere, right? So I do want to just give you the component here that at the end of the day, you start with where you're starting. And so if you only do have something like 10 bucks to start with and you're running like a sales campaign, and let's say your product cost per purchase or your product sells for $300, it could be challenging. It could pop off and you could do that, but that's one of those where you might want to get creative. If you have a small budget, try and find if the purchase objective isn't doing the optimization of purchase isn't doing it, try pulling back maybe to add to cart, then view content. And in a way, it's simply getting that volume there as to maximize your resources to the action that's closest as possible to purchase. And hopefully from there, your website, your product is doing a lot of the heavier lifting. You have empty cart automations, other things within your website that are going to help you kind of convert that individual to do the heavier lifting because you don't have what it takes to get the system off the ground. Same when it comes to leads. The reality is leads, it's going to differ. There's people in verticals where we see they have like $1.50 per lead, and some are paying $20 per lead, right? Where they're doing more like B2B, they're paying a higher premium. And so in those components, we're simply going to, again, maximize what you have, use that 50 times your CPA that you want, dividing them by 7. That's always going to be your best practice. But whatever you have, just test it, run it, make sure your objective is correct. And then at the end of the day, if you are limited, but you know you need to run ads, then focus on lesser actions that are going to be a little bit more affordable. So if it is traffic, maybe landing page view, just so you can get that volume and make sure that your landing page is kicking butt to get those conversions. But know that at that moment, if you're not optimizing to that, it's an uphill battle. But do what you have to do, but make sure that you also comprehend and understand your budget so you can make smarter decisions. Because if that's holding you back, we don't want to make sure that you're focusing your time on everything else when it's like your budget's not large enough or you're not utilizing it correctly. You know what I mean? So now the third component is, are you letting the platform do its thing? One of the things here, if you like perfect in the e-com world, if you're learning for the D2C bros, like some of these guys are like testing freaking, they're running 50K test creatives like on the daily, producing, doing a bunch of ads, doing a bunch of creative testing, hooks, this and that. And so when you're learning from guys like this, it's not that it's bad, but just, if you have smaller budgets, it's not going to apply to you. So it's important that you let the system do its thing. Let the system run. Don't try and hack, don't try and do different things. You start getting results, let it cook, let it do its thing. If you feel that you're noticing certain things that we'll touch on later, like creative and stuff that you can maybe enhance and make better to lower your cost, then 1000% do it. But at the end of the day, if the system's performing well and your cost per acquisition or for that action that you desire, the result, it continues to drop and it's performing well, then let that creative. Listen, I've crap you not, we had a business that we scaled to a million over a month in 6 months where they were making 60K a month and then went to make over a million a month. And it was one campaign with six creatives, and we let those ads run and they continued winning. We ran for over a year and we scaled past $1 million a month. So it doesn't always require that you do. And obviously, Andromeda now is in the mix and requires more creative diversification. But all I'm saying is let the system do its thing. Let it learn, let it optimize. And as long as your cost isn't skyrocketing, just leave it. Even if you think anytime is my pet peeve is like when business owners like, that's an old ad. Oh, people are tired of seeing it. Or when you talk to a meta rep, they're like, oh, creative fatigue. And it's like, creative fatigue where? No, show me. We're okay. Frequency. What dictates the frequency being too high? What makes is 13 too high? Is 20 too high? If my cost per acquisition is still good and I'm getting customers and the cost isn't skyrocketing and I'm fine and I'm making a return that I need on my ads and it meets my business objectives, then I don't need to change anything. So let the system do its thing. Let it run. Give it time. Give it some. Don't be in there messing around, kicking into the learning phase, making changes, and you never let it get the momentum that it needs, the learnings that it needs, and you're just in an endless cycle trying to day trade. You're not day trading. Don't forget that. Give it time. Changes that you make today can take a few, maybe up to 7 days. Some companies, some businesses, brands see the changes more quickly, but that's all. Just be smart, be a little bit more hands off. And so now, if you know that, hey, your objective is correct, you set up your campaign correctly. One thing we didn't touch on is like how many ad groups or campaign budget optimizer, Advantage Plus, blah, blah. We're not going to get lost in the sauce. We're simply trying to identify where the issue is, and then you could do the deep dives in there, right? So if the structure's fine, you're optimizing to where you need to, your budget's good, it makes sense. You're gonna be hands off, and you're not gonna freaking every day make a change and not let it get off the ground. Cool. Let's move on to the next step. And so now, step two, we are going to talk about the ad. This is the ad unit, the creative itself, right? So when you look in Meta or in any other platform, you have your campaign, your ad group. We're looking at the creative, especially nowadays in the post iOS 14 days, which is super old news, but now where the creative does the targeting, your creative's job is to get the right person to click. So there's a few metrics that we're going to look at here, and they kind of go against some of my rules. One of the things when I work with clients is like, we don't want to focus on vanity metrics because they don't tell us anything. And that's not fully true. But what I mean with that typically is like, hey, if we're getting purchases, we're getting sales, and it's working, the click-through rate doesn't matter. They can provide direction, they could provide information, they could be very informative, but we call them vanity metrics. But a lot of the times they are going to tell you, hey, this ad's working really well because it has a high click-through rate. But the only reason for that is that I've had businesses where it's like the vanity metric stuff is just not there. There's no crazy thumb stop rate, there's no crazy click-through rate, but it's cooking, it's doing its thing, and it's working for us. And there's others where we have to look at that. So two key components, or we could say three. One is going to be CTR, click-through rate, right? You need to look at you're going to see link click-through rate all, and then your actual, link click-through rate, and then you have your click-through rate all, which is just people clicking on your ad. You want the actual link click-through rate because you want to see if people are actually engaging with this. Even on the click through all, you could use both and just kind of decipher where the data's at. So it's not super skewed and you're lying to yourself. But in short, it's like, are people engaging with this? Because if your click through rate's super high, right, you have something like a 4.5 or a 5 on a purchase and purchases aren't happening, then you know it's not necessarily creative. There's components that we will touch, but it's doing its job in that sense that people are, it's attracting people, it's going through. And another metric that you want to look at is your thumb stop rate. So this is going to be in the custom column. You'll have to do the equation and you're going to go 50% watched divided by impressions, right? Or you could do hook rate calculation, which is 3-second watch divided by the impressions, right? So you want to see how your hook is working. If it's hooking people, you're going to look at your hook rate. Your thumb stop rate is going to be that 50% watch to impressions, meaning they're actually like they're staying on that creative. And so these are going to give you basically, again, different insight, right? Because if they're clicking through, that means this message is resonating with people. What's happening after that, we're gonna touch on that, but at least you know, okay, hey, this is doing its job. And if you know your messaging is correct, then okay, cool. You can eliminate that in the sense like, is this working or is it not working? And if your click-through rate is and your whole hook rates and all of this are like really low, it could be that your ad is just not good. So then you have to break that down. And this is where like the hook rate can help you, right? So if your hook rate is high, but your click-through rate is low, then you know, okay, my hook is good, but then something's happening. There's a disconnect and I'm not delivering in that creative, right? So there's different ways that you can look at this data to break down more or less like, okay, what it is about this ad that's not working, that people aren't clicking through, that's not getting them to stop. And so that's where you start now deep diving, working on getting stronger hooks, whether they're visual, whether they're how you're communicating that. So that's where you need to get smart, to explore a lot of different ads, go to the Facebook ads library, check out different competitors, other people, brands that you admire and see what they're doing and try those things. Obviously, make it fit, don't steal in the sense like you just rip it off and then it's like, really, I mean, be original, right? But yeah, start looking at those components, and those are some metrics that are just going to help you identify that. And if you're getting the results that you need to, then cool, right? The click through rate, the what designates a good click through rate? There's industry benchmarks, but even then, it's like based on your objective, your vertical, your what you're optimizing towards. A click through rate for a purchase optimization is going to be very different than a click through rate for links landing page optimization, right? It's just going to be very different because of the quality. You're paying a premium. It might not be as high, but if it's working, it's working. So use these just simply if again, something's not working, this can be indicative of that there's a disconnect there. And another key insight that I want to talk about here, because we talked about the creative does the targeting. Okay. So it could be that it's performing well, but is it attracting the correct person? So if there's a disconnect that's happening and your ad's working good, and we're going to talk about landing page and product page, etc., but it could be your ad is attracting the wrong person. So yeah, they're engaging and they're clicking through, but then they're seeing it and then they're just like, I can't afford this. And so that's where you need to make those adjustments. Going back, where again, these vanity metrics are just more directional and to give you insight. And so make sure that you are targeting the correct person, because otherwise you could be driving the incorrect people. And though it looks good and it's performing well, you're not driving the individual that you should. So you need to fix your messaging. So that's a key insight that you always need to keep in the back of your mind when you're troubleshooting through your actual ad. And so now let's talk about the landing page. Where are you sending people from your ad to your website? Where's the destination? Maybe you're using in platform instant forms. I'll touch on instant form for the sake in case you're doing that. One thing you need to keep in mind with instant form is that you can get really low cost per lead, but your leads could be absolute not good. So if you are running instant forms, I encourage you to really just thrust that thing out with questions that are qualifying. Make it hard for them to sign up. Because if you're enjoying $1.50 of leads and then they're falling apart in shambles, it's just not worth it. Don't lie to yourself. At the end of the day, you want business outcomes, right? So, or if your agency's pushing you a bunch of great $1.50 leads, but they're coming from instant forms and they're not leveling with you and trying to get the quality, then you need to just take that into consideration. So where you're driving people is super important. It's super important that you take people to an actual landing page. So not just to a homepage, right? Where people just get lost. Now, I've had businesses where literally we just drove to the homepage. They were more or less like just they had a really strong brand, and their ads were not so much specific on product, but they sold a lot of different type of supplies, and so that worked. It worked for that brand, for that business. And then even later, as we're scaling, we started leveraging more niche product specific landing pages towards the specific creatives as we're scaling and leveling up. So there's never no right or wrong, but it's going to be best for you. But if you are driving your homepage because your ad is more general, then just keep in mind ensuring that your homepage is doing its job in selling to people and making sure that that makes sense. Don't be lazy. So if there's an opportunity where you're driving, highlighting specific products and you're touching on different pain points, right? Different moments that are covering that your product handles that solves for people, then you want there to be a connection. You don't want to be a mismatch. Just you don't want it to be 10% off and they show up and they're like, where is the 10% off? Or you don't want it to be, change your life for XYZ. And then it's like, wait, where is it that I changed my life? So make sure there's a connection there on from what they're seeing to what they're experiencing when they land. This is where the conversion is going to happen. So a landing page I want to talk about because a dedicated landing page, especially when it comes to leads, is super important. It's going to qualify people. It's going to give them more information. It's going to sell them. You can now make these more robust to get conversions. So now people are clicking through your ad, right? Because they love it. But now they're coming to your landing page. Now, if they're not converting, then what is it? Right. And so this is where you need to look at your analytics. This is where you need to have like a tool. Microsoft Clarity is a free screen recording heat map. And so this could give you more insight into your landing page and where it is that they're getting stuck, right? And now your messaging again maybe needs to be fixed. Is it aligning with the person that's coming in? So maybe you have a creative that's winning and it has a very unique messaging or something angle that it has. Make sure that that's replicated here so that it doesn't disconnect. And at that point, you want to start looking at different things. But honestly, when it comes to like generating leads, like for leads campaigns, it's really hard to not get leads. Like you have to just have a huge disconnect, but there's still a lot of opportunities to increase conversion rates to get better performance and get that. And then if you let's say you in the e-com space, you're driving to your product page, then you want to make sure that product page is robust. You want to make sure it's strong above the fold. You want to take a look again, set up clarity, make sure you have analytics. You're looking at the data to seeing where the disconnect has happened. You'd be surprised. It could be that people are clicking a lot on a certain button and it's not working, or they're trying to click on pictures or this. You'd be surprised how many times we find out something's just broken and that was a missing piece. So fully understand where it is that you're driving them to. What is your goal and what is happening, and make sure there's not a disconnection there. And it's super important that, again, when I talk about that connection, that it's following through on what you're selling so that they take that action. People need to be walked through their journey, their process. You literally have to tell people what to do. And if you're not doing that, then it doesn't get them to. They're just going to get lost in your website, click around, that was cool, and hopefully it does its job. But it's super important that you're intentional. So as you get through these three different steps and now you arrive to your landing page, start digging deep. You leverage ChatGPT, Claude, any AI tool that you want to use to make sure and make these changes to your. Go find top performing brands in your space. Look at their product pages. Or if you're a coach and you're trying to sell that, or you're a service business, find the big dogs or find somebody that's a good example that you feel it aligns with what you're wanting to do, and look at their landing page and take from it, take elements of it, the structure, how it flows, test different things out. If you have a landing page tool and you're testing A/B, then do all those different things. Same when it comes to your Shopify, to your actual ecom website, right? Are there different tools? Are there things that you could be leveraging, different plugins that are going to help just maximize those conversions? So super important understanding again all these different components and finding now where you need to make that fix. And so to expand a little bit more when it comes to the landing pages, we need to look through a few key components, right? First things first is going to be like messaging. So is the messaging off? Does it not connect to your ad? Right. So making sure that what you're saying in your ad is connecting to what they're seeing, where they're arriving to. The other component is price, right? Are people landing, spending time, and you see them clicking and then they're just not, is it your price? Have you looked at your competitors? Have you looked at the market, what it is? And honestly, trying to find and navigate how to get that feedback from strangers, it could be challenging, but it's important that you get that and maybe test that. Maybe test dropping the price, see what it does, right? So if you feel you're charging much larger amounts than your competition because you feel you have a reason you should, the market's going to let you know whether they should or not. So make sure that you're also not doing that component and you're making sense and you're not just being confident and incredible, which you should be, but you also have to be realistic. And then once you build that authority, once you build that trust and consistency, you're always going to be able to increase and do what you need, but you have the revenue for that. Maybe you could pay now more for a purchase. You can compete in that arena in the marketplace much stronger. And then another thing that you need to consider is, does your product require education, right? So a lot of things, if these are things that people just buy on the daily that they need, it's just a matter of having some key differentiators, or you could turn people over, having that brand and the authority component, which we'll talk about. But if it requires education, if it's something that people don't even know that they need, then you need to make sure that your landing page is super robust and take that into consideration if they're not converting, because maybe they did read through, but it's going to take more time. It's going to take you having more touch points. Not this is even separate from the trust and authority, rather just getting them to understand what it is that you're offering and you're selling, and that they need it because it requires education. We have a client that basically does mental health journals. And so this is something that's not, people aren't like, oh, let me go buy a mental health journal. I wonder where I can get one. No, they don't even know that they need one. So it's almost like your therapy companion. It's super cool, super niche. So this requires a lot of education. So they have to be super extra ninja with the landing page and the route and the way they set up their campaigns to ensure that they're educating. And then leading back now to the final component, which is trust and authority, making sure you have reviews, right? Because if you don't have any of those, how are people trusting you, right? So you need to take that into consideration. Is it going to take more touch points? But make sure that you're putting those on the forefront. Make sure that there's trust, that there's authority, and that you're establishing that, because I always talk about my three pillars of a brand growth, and that's clarity, consistency, and the final one is credibility. And if you don't have credibility, if you don't have trust, you don't have authority, you don't have a brand, because nobody's buying from you. So you remember, you build a brand through sales. You don't build a brand to get sales. You make sales so that you can grow a brand. So that credibility is going to be super important. All right, so that's going to be for this episode. It's super simple, but again, I want to get you guys to thinking through the different stages. We can get lost in so many details. There's a lot of key components. And those of you that are more experts, more experienced, you understand that there's going to be a lot more at play. But for those of you that are just trying to figure out, like trying to pinpoint, and then you can do the deep dive, then you can go explore these solutions a little bit more. It's super important that you understand where that disconnect is happening, right? It's like if your objective isn't the correct one to the outcome that you desire, your campaign setup is not what it should be, then that's what you need to adjust. Now, once that's adjusted and it's working and optimizing towards that action, then if your ad isn't working right, where we're talking about click through rate, thumb stop hold, the hook rate, and those like custom metrics that are more indicative of like, hey, is this doing its job? Then now you know whether you need to fix that or if you move along. And then also keeping in mind that your ad could be doing great, but it's attracting the wrong person. So make sure that that messaging is good with aligning with your landing page. And now to your landing page, right? Making sure that you're not just taking them to the homepage, or if you are, just make sure it's really strong and it makes sense for your vertical. So, because I've done that before, so I don't want to say don't do that, but it's always better if you have that straight connection to your ad, to the messaging and what it is. So there's clarity, consistency, and leads them to that conversion and that action for what they click through, right? Don't leave them to figure it out. Walk them through it, make it easy for them, and they'll take that action. And on that landing page, remember, ensuring, keeping in mind where it's like, is this something that's requires education, right? If it requires education, you're gonna have to do a little bit heavier lifting, maybe some videos, get creative, look at other brands that are selling more commodity type products that just like people don't need or don't even know that they need, but you know that it's going to change their life, right? And then the proof and authority. Make sure that you have reviews on that landing page. Make sure that you're setting up the clarity, so you have that screen recording, the heat map, so you're seeing what's happening, making sure there's no dead clicks. You'd be surprised how there's little things like that that could just be holding you back, and something's broken, and you're like, you messed up, or your ad agency just didn't fix the landing page sign up form, and that's why you're not getting leads. But everybody's actually wanting to sign up, and now you missed it because you were focused on your creative, thinking that wasn't that, or all of this is falling apart because you simply just selected the incorrect optimization and wrong objective. And the second that you change that, it changes your life forever. We've seen it. I've seen people that making like 1,800 a month, and the second we set them up with the right campaign, everything else stays the same, and it's like boom, 40K months, life change. Super important. So remember, think about the system. Don't get caught up so much in the creative all the time. Use that logic. Find within these three stages. And if you guys ever have questions, comment down below. Reach out on social media. Shoot us an email. And again, make sure you like if it feels good. You know what I mean? If it thumbs down, why'd you stay so long? And make sure I said to subscribe. Down below, we have resources. So again, we run webinars. They're master classes. Okay, they're not just webinars. We're breaking down, hitting those pain points on what it is that could be keeping your business stuck. I even have a cool business assessment it's like a little mini quiz that's gonna let you know where your business needs focus and needs the help at. And then we're also doing some like live events. Basically, we're trying to make it super easy for people to launch a full system. Because one thing that we learned today, it's like, it's not just ads. We're having that full system, having that connection. There's still even deeper components. There's still automations, nurtures. There's a lot of tech that's out there. There's killer ways. So now as you start finding these diagnostic components in your business and where something might be failing, make sure that you're deep diving, learning more, and we hope to be able to provide you with that. So until next time, my friends, don't get lost in the sauce. I'll see you there.